spiritual food for thought.
Welcome back to Spiritual Food for Thought. Thank you for joining me once again. At the moment, I'm working through some verses that come out of the New Testament that I think people need to have as part of the foundation of their faith. These have to fit somewhere into your theology. A lot of times people grab really hard to one verse to the point that other verses must not be true. Well, there has to be a way to have it all be true, or God's lying at some of the points when he has certain things recorded in the Bible. It's just that simple. You can't have contradictory things both be true at the same time without negating one another. So how does it all fit together accurately? And unfortunately, the modern church system does not have a biblical foundation for their faith. I'll point you to this video here to give you a frame of reference for that. Sad but true. But a lot of what they believe doesn't come from the Bible. It comes from the theological seminaries. It comes from modern church doctrine. It doesn't come from the law and the prophets. It doesn't come from the foundation that God laid. And a huge part of this, an Old Testament verse to consider, or a passage, is going to be Deuteronomy chapter 13, verses 1 to 5. And basically, if somebody comes and leads you away from obeying God, they're a false prophet who is evil and is worthy of death. Compare the modern church's testimony of who Jesus Christ is and who Paul is to Deuteronomy 13, 1 to 5, and in each of those cases, they would fail, and they would not come from God. At best, they would be a false prophet who was sent to deceive. That's not the case. That's not true. And somehow, in modern church theology, rather than having sin be the enemy, rather than having disobeying God be the enemy, the law of God has become the enemy. This is absolutely insane. But it's what people teach, and therefore it's what people believe. So consider this verse and allow it to be part of your theology. Revelation chapter 14, verse 12. It says, "Here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus." Okay, the faith of Jesus here and obeying the commandments of God are not mutually exclusive. They go hand in hand. They're supposed to be paired and partnered one with another. Now, what the modern church does is they say, oh, well, that's after the rapture. Okay, that's Jews in the future. They got to obey God and believe in Jesus. Right now, we just believe in Jesus. God's law is our enemy. That's ridiculous, but that's what they believe and that's what they claim. Before, people had to obey God. In the future, people have to obey God. Right now, it's just grace. We do as we see fit. We just do as we please. And as long as we believe something about Jesus, we're going to be fine. That's actually not the case. Okay, if you love me, keep my commandments. And people will claim all day, oh, I and my Father are one. Jesus and God are one, except for in cases like this. Obey my commandments. Oh, that only means the things that Jesus said in the New Testament. Really? Because if you compare that theology to something like Revelation 14:12, you don't wind up with believing them as being accurate. To obey the commandments of God and keep the faith of Jesus. Have the faith of Jesus. Think about that. If this was the definition of a saint, okay, here's the patience of the saints. Well, who are the saints? They that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. These days, the modern church is often missing the first part. Well, unfortunately, if you miss the first part of saint, all that's left is ain't. We don't want to be missing obedience. It's just ridiculous that the second somebody mentions obeying God, it's like, oh, they're legalistic. They're trying to earn salvation with their works. Like, really? What did he make you and buy you for? If he made you out of his own material, which God did when he formed you in your mother's womb, and if he bought you with the precious blood of his son so that you could be reconciled to him, why did he make you and buy you? Ephesians 2, if we read past being saved by grace through faith, what do we see? Why were we saved? For good works. Obeying God is a good work. Doing what your master says is how to be a good servant, how to be faithful in your stewardship that he's given. And it's required that stewards be found faithful. And my challenge to people from the modern church right now is, rather than just saying this is for somebody else, in the future this is how to be a saint, obey God and believe in Jesus. Right now we don't need to obey God, we just believe in Jesus. Before people had to, in the future they had to, right now we don't though. Rather than having that be your theology, consider this. Just consider this. And this is not, the only verse that mentions something like this. Look at a previous passage in Revelation chapter 12, verse 17. And the dragon was wroth with the woman and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. So they'll say, oh, that woman, that's Israel, that's Jews in the future. Well, remember, Jews and Israel are not synonymous. Okay? You could be from the tribe of Judah and therefore a Jew. You could be from the southern kingdom, Judah and Benjamin, and therefore a Jew. You could practice Judaism and therefore be a Jew. But Israel is God's people, not just the Jews. And there's plenty of people who could practice Judaism or be born of the southern kingdom, Benjamin and Judah, or be of the tribe of Judah. There's plenty of those Jews who may not be right with God, because just being born something or practicing Judaism doesn't make you right with God. It takes more than that. Like keeping the commandments of God and the testimony of Jesus Christ. You see, that's what we're supposed to do. It's not just somebody else. Again, look at Ephesians 2. We were once separated from the commonwealth of Israel. We're no longer separated from them. We're joined unto them. Therefore, the commandments for Israel are the commandments for us. People will say, oh, no, we're the church. I want to do a video on church. Look up church in the New Testament. Look up the Greek word. Look how it's used. It's not exclusive even for believers. Okay? Is that the church you're part of? Just some generic term that can also mean a riotous mob that wants to kill believers? That's the church you're part of? Because to think that church is some special thing that God only uses a certain way when he has people write in the New Testament is flawed. All you got to do is look up the word. And you'll see, wait a minute, maybe it's more than just that word, because that word is used some ways that we wouldn't associate with. So it's more than just that. It's more than just a gathering. It's a special type of gathering, a gathering of God's people, a gathering of Israel. That's what we need to focus on. And as God's people, as Israel, we should obey the commandments of God, keep the commandments of God, and the faith of Jesus Christ. It's amazing that people will reject passages like this and say, oh, that's only for somebody else. Only somebody else has to, while they believe in Jesus, while they have the testimony of Jesus, while they do these things, that they have to obey God too. But all I need is just to claim Jesus, just to confess his name. And that's enough. Well, guess what? The many who will say unto him, Lord, Lord, they professed his name. And he will say, I never knew you. You workers of iniquity, you lawless ones, you who were disobedient. Consider that. Allow that to be some food for thought. But in the end, find a place in your theology for this. And I would highly encourage you to find a place that is not simply, oh, that must be somebody else. Maybe you should be this type of saint. I think I need to be this type of saint. And therefore I encourage you to consider that maybe this should be part of your sainthood too. Not just lip service by claiming Christ, but life service by living the way that he lived in full obedience to our Heavenly Father. Be blessed.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.